Egypt arrived in Vancouver knowing a win would put them in pole position for Group G qualification, and that is exactly what they delivered, a 3-1 victory over New Zealand that tells the story of a team that found their rhythm when it mattered most. Welcome to FairPlay, Football AI Review. Group G had produced surprises in Round 1, with both Belgium and Iran drawing their openers and leaving the door slightly ajar for everyone. Egypt came in with 4 points within reach across their 2 remaining group games, while New Zealand, sitting on 1 point after a draw with Iran, desperately needed a result to keep their World Cup dream alive heading into the final match day. The pre-match narrative centered heavily on Mohamed Salah, who was chasing history, sitting just 1 goal away from tying his national coach's all-time scoring record for Egypt. New Zealand, meanwhile, carried genuine belief after their spirited draw with Iran, and Darren Bazley had a fully fit squad to choose from, which allowed him to go with his most attack-minded 11. Bazley set New Zealand up in a 4-2-3-1 that prioritized defensive shape, but was designed to counter with pace. Chris Wood anchored the front line with the license to drop and link play, while Elijah Just and Sarpreet Singh operated as the attacking midfield pair with a specific brief to stretch Egypt on the flanks and find pockets between the Egyptian defensive and midfield lines. Hossam Hussein mirrored the formation but with very different intent. Egypt's 4-2-3-1 was structured to dominate possession through the midfield triangle and central overloads, with Imam Ashur and Marwan Ataya providing the defensive foundation, while Salah, Mostafa Zico, and Omar Marmoush were given freedom to interchange and create positional chaos in the final third. Both teams mirroring each other in formation created a fascinating battle of interpretation. The key mismatch emerged in the width. Egypt's wide defenders Mohamed Hani and Hamdi Fathi pushed high, leaving space in behind that New Zealand tried to exploit on the counter, while Egypt's narrow press in midfield squeezed New Zealand's double pivot and forced them into longer, less accurate distribution. New Zealand came out of the blocks with genuine energy and intent, pressing high in the opening exchanges and winning the ball back quickly in promising areas. The atmosphere inside BC Place was electric from kickoff, with the 52,000 crowd roaring the all-whites forward, and Egypt looked momentarily unsettled by the aggression and tempo of the home team's start. New Zealand's early pressure paid dividends in the 15th minute, when Finn Surman rose to meet Tim Payne's corner and powered a header into the net, exposing what was described as questionable marking from the Egyptian set-piece defense. It was a composed, textbook delivery and an equally composed finish from a central defender, and it sent BC Place into absolute bedlam. Just 3 minutes after Surman's opener, Egypt's defensive midfielder Mohamed Lashin was booked for serious foul play as Egypt's discipline threatened to fray under pressure. The yellow card was a warning sign that Egypt needed to calm themselves and control the game rather than react emotionally to going behind. New Zealand pushed for a second goal and created genuine chances through Callum McCowett and Sarpreet Singh, with both players testing Shobir from range. McCowett had a shot that swerved just wide, while Singh's curling effort forced a straightforward save but showed New Zealand's intent to punish Egypt before they could settle. At the midpoint of the first half, Sarpreet Singh picked up a yellow card for a cynical foul that halted an Egyptian breakout, followed shortly by Callum McCowett also being booked for dissent and persistent fouling as New Zealand's discipline began to crack. 2 yellow cards before the 40-minute mark for the home side was a concern Bazley would have addressed firmly at the break. Hamdi Fathi's afternoon ended prematurely when the Egyptian left-back was forced off late in the first half after an apparent injury away from the ball, replaced by Rami Rabia at the break. It was an unplanned disruption for Hossam Hussein that forced a reshuffle, but it arguably freed Egypt to push Rabia higher and be more aggressive in the second period. Halftime arrived with New Zealand 1-0 ahead, but the game far from settled. Egypt had begun to find their rhythm in the closing stages of the first half, with Marmoush beginning to cause problems and Salah starting to drift into dangerous positions. The tone going into the break was clear. New Zealand had to hold their shape, maintain discipline, and not invite Egypt onto them. Egypt emerged for the second half as an entirely different proposition. Hussein had clearly identified the spaces between New Zealand's wide centre-back and the full-back, and Zico and Salah began exploiting that corridor almost immediately. The Egyptians were faster to every second ball, higher in their press, and more purposeful in their movement. The equalizer arrived in the 58th minute, and it was Egypt's persistence in the air that told. Mostafa Zico found space between Surman and Payne to meet Mohamed Hani's delivery and glance a header that Max Crocombe got a hand on, but could not keep out. It was a goal that had been coming, and New Zealand's earlier goal-scoring heroes were now the players being exploited defensively. 9 minutes later, Mohamed Salah announced himself in the most decisive fashion. Zico played a clever backheel into Salah's run, and the Egypt captain broke forward before playing a sharp 1-2 with Zico and slotting the ball into the far corner with his left foot. Composed, precise, and inevitably brilliant, Salah had put Egypt ahead and moved within one goal of tying his coach Hossam Hussein's all-time Egyptian scoring record. Darren Baisley turned to Ben Old at 66 minutes, withdrawing the booked McCowett before he risked a red card. Old gave New Zealand more direct running and urgency, but the game had tilted decisively by this point, and Egypt were now defending their lead with assurance rather than anxiety. The 76th minute brought a flurry of changes from both benches. Hussein introduced Mahmoud Trezeguet for Marmoush and Hamza Abdelkarim for Zico, bringing fresh legs into an Egyptian attack that had already done significant damage. Baisley responded by throwing on Jesse Randall and Ryan Thomas for Kakase and the booked Singh, looking for a spark that never quite materialized. Trezeguet needed just 6 minutes to justify his introduction. In the 82nd minute, Salah delivered a corner from the left, and Trezeguet flung himself into a diving header that beat Crocombe at his near post and settled the contest definitively. The substitute had done exactly what the best substitutes do: arrive on the pitch and immediately make his presence felt in the most meaningful way possible. Without a red card to analyze, the decisive moment of this match was unquestionably Zico's 58th minute equalizer. It came at a moment when New Zealand's defensive concentration was briefly fractured. It immediately reset the psychological weight of the game, and it opened the door to everything that followed. From 1-0 down to 1-1 took just 13 minutes of second-half pressure, and the floodgates never fully closed again after that. In terms of ball possession, Egypt controlled 56% to New Zealand's 44%, but those numbers understate Egypt's dominance in the second half specifically. Their 527 passes compared to New Zealand's 420, achieved at 88% accuracy against New Zealand's 80%, illustrates how Egypt constructed the game patiently and picked New Zealand apart at their own tempo rather than forcing the issue. Egypt's attacking threat was legitimate and substantial throughout the evening. 19 total shots with 7 on target and an expected goals figure of 1.92 tells the story of a team that not only created volume, but created quality. New Zealand's 11 shots and 1.14 xG reflects a team that was dangerous in patches, particularly from set pieces, but lacked the sustained threat to keep Egypt honest across 90 minutes. Defensively, New Zealand's backline was strong in the first half but increasingly exposed as Egypt's movement became more fluid. Michael Boxall and Joe Bell were excellent in midfield defensively, with Bell making 5 tackles, but the centre-back pairing of Surman and Boxall found the pace and positioning of Zico and Salah increasingly difficult to manage. For Egypt, Mohamed Hani was excellent at right back, contributing an assist while completing 7 tackles across the 90 minutes. New Zealand's standout performer was Elijah Just, who delivered an enormously impressive shift across the entire match. Just attempted 4 shots, 3 of which found the target, and contributed enormously to New Zealand's pressing and transition game. His energy and directness gave Baisley's side their best moments in attack, and on another day his persistence in the box could have yielded a second all-whites goal. For Egypt, Mohamed Salah was magnificent in every dimension that matters. 6 total shots, 3 on target, 1 goal, 1 assist, and the intelligence to consistently find space in a packed New Zealand midfield. His backheel to set up his own goal was a moment of genius, and his corner delivery for Trezeguet's winner showed why he remains one of the most complete footballers on the planet, even at this stage of his career. The player who fell below expectations was Omar Marmoush. He attempted 8 shots across the 90 minutes he was involved, which sounds impressive in volume, but the quality was consistently lacking. 3 off target, 4 blocked, and only 1 registered on target. For a player of his quality and the expectation that came with his selection, Marmoush was wasteful when Egypt's lead was still fragile and needed to be extended with more clinical finishing. Tactically, Hossam Hussein got the big calls right, identifying the defensive weakness at set pieces early, reacting to Fathi's injury without losing structure, and the timing of the Trezeguet introduction were all astute decisions. Baisley's choice to withdraw McCowett before a second yellow was correct given the circumstances, but New Zealand never really found a way to change the game's momentum after Egypt equalized. The team selection got them to 1-0, but the tactical flexibility needed to hold it simply wasn't there. The head-to-head history between these nations is limited, but this result cements a clear pattern where Egypt's superior technical quality and depth tells against a New Zealand side that can punch above their weight for periods, but ultimately struggles to sustain that intensity for a full match against more technically accomplished opposition. Egypt now hold the psychological edge and the momentum heading into their final group game. New Zealand's recent form was deceptively impressive on paper. Wins over New Caledonia, Fiji, Samoa, Vanuatu, and Tahiti padded their record. But that opposition bears no resemblance to Group G level. The draw with Iran showed genuine character, but this defeat reveals the gap that exists when facing a team of Egypt's caliber and tactical sophistication. Egypt arrived in Group G off the back of a settled qualifying campaign. Wins over Guinea-Bissau, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Sierra Leone, combined with a creditable draw against Burkina Faso, showed a team in excellent domestic form. Their draw with Belgium in round 1 showed they can handle elite European opposition, and this performance against New Zealand demonstrated they have the tools to win when they need to. Group G after 2 match days looks increasingly like Egypt's to lose. They sit top on 4 points, while Iran and Belgium are locked together on 2 each, and New Zealand trail on 1 with a negative goal difference. Egypt have a clear path to the knockout rounds. They need only a draw against Iran to guarantee progression, while New Zealand need not just a win against Belgium, but other results to go their way. The remaining fixtures are brutally honest in what they demand. New Zealand face Belgium, who despite 2 draws carry the quality of a top 10 European nation and will be desperate for a win themselves. Egypt play Iran, who are stubborn, organized, and will see a point against Egypt as genuinely achievable given their 2 draws in the group. Neither final game will be straightforward, but Egypt's position is clearly the stronger one heading in. Based on what we have seen across both match days, Egypt will qualify from Group G. Their combination of individual brilliance in Salah, tactical discipline under Hussein, and clinical finishing from multiple positions makes them the class of this group. Belgium are the likeliest second team to progress, with their greater individual quality and European pedigree giving them the edge over Iran in a potential head-to-head tiebreaker, which means New Zealand's World Cup journey in this edition almost certainly ends in Vancouver. This was a match that had everything: an early shock, a tactical tug-of-war, and a second half where Egypt's class ultimately told over New Zealand's heart. The All-Whites gave everything and led, but Egypt's response was measured, methodical, and ultimately overwhelming. Salah reminded the world why he belongs on the grandest stage, and Trezeguet's diving header was a moment that will live in Egyptian football memory. Thank you for joining us here on FairPlay, Football AI Review. New Zealand versus Belgium and Egypt versus Iran are the final Group G games, and with qualification still mathematically alive for 3 of the 4 teams, the drama is far from over. We will have full coverage of both matches, so make sure you are with us for every moment of the finale. That's the FairPlay verdict on this one. If you want more analysis like this, follow us, find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at FairPlay AI, and follow Anthony personally on X at Anthony Fairplay. See you next match.